Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. The Somalian Savannah, 1895. 31-year-old sculptor Carl Akeley creeps through the brush, gripping his rifle in his hands. It is a .577 caliber nickel-plated elephant gun, designed for hunting the big game that lurks this area. He is searching for a massive warthog that he saw wounded nearby. A dangerous opponent, to be sure. But Akeley's mission is not one of personal gain. It is one of conservation. He's the first great taxidermist in history, and he wants that warthog to display in a museum in New York, a way of teaching Americans of the majesty of nature, in hopes that he can convince more wealthy donors to spend money to save the rapidly disappearing wildlife of Africa. He hears a rustling in the bush. He can see large, bloody streaks leading off in that direction, clear signs of a struggle, of a wounded creature. He raises his weapon. Then from the side, there's a long, low growl. That's not a warthog. That's something bigger. Then there's a crash. He whirls and sees a massive leopard emerging through the trees, hurtling towards Akeley with a mighty roar. There's no time to swing his long-barreled rifle around. He drops it, gets his arms up to protect his throat, and staggers as the leopard crashes against him, kicking, clawing, and biting. Conservationist, artist, and explorer Carl Akeley is now in a life-or-death fistfight against an 80-pound wild leopard. And the leopard doesn't have a chance. Hello, and welcome back to Badass of the Week, the show where we tell the badass history of badasses. My name is Ben Thompson, and we are joined today by a very special guest. He is a woodworker, designer, artist, sculptor, and the creator of Alm Fab. We are here today with Michael Alm. Michael, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Yeah, this is going to be fun. So you are a woodworker and a designer, an artist. You started doing woodworking, and that kind of blew up into a successful woodworking YouTube channel, to the point where when I Googled you, I had to say that when I Googled you, Gemini put you up as a internet personality.
That's strange.
Yeah, I don't know if you've Googled yourself recently, but yeah, it's like Michael Alm. It's got a nice little picture of you, and it says internet personality.
Wow, really? No,
P.
I haven't looked it up recently. I'll have to look it up.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess I'm an internet personality these days. Yeah. I put out
That's
YouTube
cool.
videos, in educational woodworking videos on YouTube for the most part. And yeah, just have fun making crazy woodworking projects.
Cool. You are Seattle-based, which I know because full disclosure, Michael and I have been friends for a really long time, and we like last month, our D&D group, our weekly Tuesday night D&D group, just had its 16-year anniversary, which is kind of wild.
That's so crazy. Yeah, it's been a blast. Yeah, we see each other every week.
Right. And between you, me, and then Primavera, we had Astronautilus for a while. I feel like there's a lot of I don't know, followers, social media followers in our group, even though we've never once talked about it.
Yeah, weirdly.
Yeah, you and me, but not Macklemore.
Not Macklemore. Get that guy out of there.
Do you want to? Should we tell the Macklemore story, or should we leave it a mystery forever?
I like it as a mystery. We almost had Macklemore play D&D with us, but we told him no.
We told him he couldn't. Yeah.
Yep.
He just wanted to watch. He just wanted to watch and see what it was all about.
Yeah, which is weird.
That's weird. Yeah. This was before like D&D was like mainstream cool too. This was like 14 years ago, before he was popular.
Yeah, it was
from here.
Yeah, it was right before his album that had Thrift Shop on it released.
Right.
Like, he wasn't quite super famous, but he was on the cover of Seattle Magazine the month that we told him no. because
that's right.
Because Astronautilus sent us the cover picture to like convince us to let him into the D&D, and we said no.
Yeah, he was like, he wants to come. We're like, yeah, that's fine. He can come play. We have a big group. And he was like, no, he just doesn't want us to watch and see what it's all about. And I'm like, yeah, that's weird.
We don't let people just watch D&D. They have to play.
Yeah, you got to play. Becoming, you got to play. So anyway, we're too cool for Grammy Award winning recording artists play D&D with us. But you're not famous for D&D. You are well known for your patterned plywood, which do you want to describe what that is, or should we just tell the listeners to look it up?
I can describe it real quick. It's so what I do is I take plywood, which has plies in it. You know, they're very stripy along the edge of the plywood, and I cut it into strips and then cut it again and then cut it again and reform it into patterns. And I've developed like 25 patterns, and it's kind of what was my first launching off point on YouTube. And since then I've developed guides so that people can do it in their own workshop. And it's like a fun sort of hobby thing that you can do with woodworking and experiment to just make projects that much more interesting.
Yeah. And it looks, I mean, you do need to look this up as a listener, because it's very difficult to describe exactly how these patterns turn out, but they're super cool. It's all different colors of wood that are interspliced into these interesting patterns. And yeah, so you've been doing that. You've been doing other woodworking videos. You've developed a pretty good following. But you started as an artist and a sculptor, and I actually have several pieces of your art hanging up in my house. And I think the first show I ever went to see of yours was called Exotic Animals. And I always kind of thought of this as vegan taxidermy. Can you explain like what this show was all about?
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. I don't know how there were three of us that were sort of making faux taxidermy animals out of different materials. One artist was doing paper mache, one artist was doing felt, and I was doing all sorts of mixed media, applying faux furs to forms that I made out of oven baked clay, and I was making full like animal heads with antlers. The antlers were made out of like chair legs, and as that developed more and more, it started sort of shifting more towards just purely making it out of wood. But the early days of me working on it was like I was kind of reverse reinventing taxidermy, and I didn't even realize it. I was looking at pictures of taxidermy, and I was like, I think this is how they made it. And in a weird way, I kind of got there in the end. And it was such a fun process that I ended up like doing more and more research into the animals and animal anatomy, and then that just led me down a path to learn a ton about taxidermists. And I even went to the World Taxidermy Competition in like 2016 or something like that, just to meet a bunch of taxidermists. So I became this like taxidermist fanboy for a little bit there.
Did you bring your pieces? Because to describe like these pieces, they are, think like when you go to a hunting club and there's like a deer head mounted on the wall or some exotic animal or something, you would create fake animals out of wood and then cover them with like felt or feathers, and like you said, add like glass eyes and antlers and stuff, so it looked like some strange like fantasy creature had been killed and his head cut off and mounted on your wall. And I think my brother bought one of them, and he's got like some kind of emu type of creature, but they're not real animals, but they look like it, right? And like you said, you were kind of using what is actual taxidermy to create these. I remember you had a bear skin on your wall at one point.
Oh yeah,
fake bear skin.
It was a tiger. Yeah, it was a fake tiger that I built the hands, the paws, and the head. Like the jaw was made with hand carved wooden teeth with the jaws open. I sculpted the inside of the mouth out of oven baked clay, and then I got real taxidermy eyes, like reverse painted glass eyes, and I used like paint brush bristles to make the whiskers, and then I built it, on basically, fun fur that you got from probably Joanne Fabrics is where I got it from. And I shaved it back to make like different textures in the fur. And I was just it was a blast. It was super fun to do. And Yeah,
and it was
really,
like 7 feet long. It was like
it was
massive
gigantic. It was gigantic. Yeah, it took up my entire living room wall.
And so when you did the show, you dressed up like a big game hunter from the Indiana Jones time period, like the 1920s or 30s, with the British pith hat and the khakis and the big hunting rifle, and you were like, these are the animals that I got when I was on safari, and that was such a fun art show. But
yeah,
like you said, you got into people who did this for real while you were trying to kind of dive into your art. And I remember I had been doing Badass at this point. It was also pretty small time at the time, but you were telling me about a guy. And so you started telling me about a taxidermist that you thought was pretty badass that I should look up. And so I remember I looked him up. His name is Carl Akeley, and I found his memoir. I just looked for him, and I went on Project Gutenberg, and I found his memoir. It's called In Brightest Africa. And I started scrolling down because there's some pictures in there. It's a lot of text. I started scrolling down and I found this sepia tone image of a skinny guy with a beard and his arms in a sling. And he's like staring angrily at the corpse of a 6-foot leopard hanging upside down by its feet. And the caption read, "Mr. Akeley and the leopard he killed barehanded."
He's absolutely a badass. This guy is amazing.
Yes. I went on to read the paragraph below that, and it's him describing the incident involved in the photo. He says, quote, "I felt no pain, but I certainly never thought for a moment that I would come out alive. I was rather calm, as a matter of fact, except for a tremendous and wildly pleasant thrill I felt, knowing I was battling for my life." It's good.
That's good writing.
That's a good quote. Yeah, I don't feel like I do. I don't feel like I do credit to the dramatic reading of it. I'm not an actor, but it's good. So I keep scrolling down and I'm like, okay, I think I'm sold. And then there's a picture of like a hut, like a straw, like thatched roof hut. And there's a dude, the form of a human hanging from a hammock in the middle of this hut, completely wrapped from like head to toe in bandages, like something out of a cartoon. And the caption says, "Mr. Akeley barely escaped death after being pinned to the earth by an infuriated elephant." And I was like, okay, I'm in.
His story gets more and more fascinating. There's no way we can cover his whole life story in this podcast, but he just gets more and more fascinating the deeper and deeper you dive into his life.
Yes. And so that's Carl Akeley, famous taxidermist, and that's who we are going to talk about on our episode this week. We're going to take a quick break for commercials, and when we come back, we're going to get into his story. All right, welcome back. We are here with special guest Michael Alm, and we are talking about Carl Akeley. So Carl Akeley was born in 1864. He was a quiet, soft-spoken, little farm boy, skinny guy from upstate New York. He loved animals and nature on a degree that like bordered to obsession. While all of his friends were out studying and throwing rocks at girls, he was drawing realistic pictures of animals and plants and teaching himself to paint so he could do them more lifelike. Kind of what you were saying, Michael, about you started doing taxidermy as art, and then you were like, I need to know everything about this because I'm obsessed with it.
Yeah, he was obsessed with anatomy, obsessed with just like perfecting and getting animals, recreating life as best as he possibly could.
Mm-hmm. And in 1883, he goes to Rochester and he gets a job apprenticing for a man named Henry Ward, who was basically at this point in time the only competent taxidermist in the world. And
competent in quotes.
In quotes, yeah, semi-competent. So Akeley decides he wants to learn how to do taxidermy because you can only paint and draw so much. I always think of those. You see some of the paintings and drawings from people who went on Captain Cook's expeditions. There's an amazing picture of somebody from one of Cook's expeditions, and it's a drawing of a Hawaiian man with a lobster, and it's not great. It kind of looks like a lobster, but it's really not a great image, and so.
Yeah, you think of like the medieval drawings of all the different animals that are just like kind of reported on, but not really drawn well, like like an elephant they described with like a hose coming out of the front of its nose. So it's like they're drawn really badly. Yeah,
yes, there's a lot of some of them are really bad. And it's like this, but that's all you had, right? You didn't have photographs. 1883 pictures, like photographs exist, but you have to stand really still for them, which makes it really hard to photograph wildlife. And, when we think about taxidermy today, we think about, I shot this animal and I put its head on my wall to show you guys how awesome I am, right? I'm a great hunter. I can kill these animals and mount their heads on my wall. But taxidermy for Carl Akeley in 1883 is not about, let me show you all these awesome animals I killed. It is kind of the only way for certain people to ever encounter this type of wildlife, right? There's not a picture of a lion because the lion's not going to sit still enough in 1883 for the pinhole camera to take a photo of it. And the drawings aren't quite good enough either. And so what Henry Ward is doing is he's taxidermying these animals using their pelts or whatever, but it's still not great. He's kind of taking pelts and stuffing it full of whatever you put into a pillow of straw, sawdust. Yeah. Oh God.
Yeah, I mean they're stuffed to the brim too. They look inflated and they lose all their shape. But it was the only technique they had back then.
Yeah, and they paint them, and it's not great. It's the medieval drawing version of of some of these animals. But Ward is doing this and he's good at it. And Akeley sees that this is an opportunity to show people in Rochester, New York, what it looks like to be on safari in Africa and what these real animals look like. And so he starts working to learn this art. He works 11 hours a day, 6 days a week. He doesn't take any breaks. He doesn't take any sick days. And he makes about $3.50 a week for his efforts, which I know that this is like one of those time periods where you're like $3.50, like 1883. I don't know. Could you like buy a house with that? So I had to do the conversion, and apparently it's $111 in today's money.
Ooh, that's not much.
Yeah, it's like 2 packs of eggs. It's $1 for 11-hour days, 6 days a week. It comes out to $1.68 an hour in today's money.
Oh my God.
That's brutal, right?
Yeah, but he was doing it for the love of it.
You'd have to, right? You'd have to love this. And so, yeah, it's not great. They take a animal skin, they stuff it with sawdust, and they sew it up, and they call it a day. And it's vaguely animal shaped at the end of the day. So Akeley is kind of like, look, if I'm going to be covered in animal guts all day, I want this thing to look good when it's done, right? I think I can make this look realistic. And so he starts dedicating himself to, let me make a lifelike looking animal. We have this pelt of this animal that was killed for its pelt. It's a real pelt, and we need to make this thing look real. And so he starts doing what you were talking about, Michael. He makes sculptures of the animal out of plaster or modeling clay and uses that as the base rather than stuffing it with sawdust and making it look like a big inflated sausage or whatever.
Right. Like, I think the misunderstanding that people have about taxidermy, someone who's just never really known anything or thought anything about how it's made, is that people think that it's full of the bones, it's full of like, I don't know, animal parts, but really taxidermy is it's the reshaping of the hide of the animal. So taxi means to manipulate, and then dermy means the hide or the skin.
Right.
So
because you can't put the bones and the muscles and that stuff in there, because number one, it's not going to stand up on its own. Number two, it's going to smell, right? Yeah. It's not going to keep terrible. You can't keep you can't keep. It's like having ground beef on your counter for 5 days, right? It's going to smell bad. You can't do that. So yeah, so inside of these animals, it's the skin of the animal, but he is starting to create the animal. He's starting to sculpt the animal, and he's paying attention to its musculature, its behavior. He's trying to pose it in a way it would be posed in the wild. He's trying to pay attention to like you were talking about, carving the leg muscles, right? The ribs, carving that into a block of wood or plaster or modeling clay, and then you put the hide over top of that, and then you try to hide the seams when you stitch it closed, so it's not so obvious that this is a skin over top of wood. And he goes even a step further than that, and he starts to try to sculpt the environment that the animal would live in, which is also, like you said, you look at some of these pieces that he's done and it's like, oh, okay, it's a lion in the savannah. But what you don't realize is that that's not savanna grass, because savanna grass doesn't keep. It would die if you put it in a museum in air conditioning with no light. He had to make this out of something that kind of looked like savanna grass to reproduce the scene as like perfectly as possible.
They would cast individual leaves in wax. They would get plaster molds of rocks in the actual locations that they were trying to represent. This was like people's first opportunity to, like you said, see the African savanna and see it with a perspective beyond basic photography or illustration. The diorama was Carl Akeley's invention. It did not exist before him.
And he starts making these at museums in Chicago and Milwaukee. He ends up at the American Museum of Natural History in New York. And he basically works for the museum for free, as long as they're agreeing to finance him on some trips to Africa to go observe these things in the wild and collect the hides himself. And you would think that, what's going to happen in a lot of these Carl Akeley stories is that he's going to be in the African bush shooting animals and like skinning them and collecting their hides. And, it's very easy to kind of look at this character as being like, oh, this is some kind of Teddy Roosevelt sport hunter, whatever. Like, it's not that cool to like shoot an animal, even in the 1920s where the technology wasn't perfect yet. You're still going to the wilderness and shooting a wild animal, cutting its head off, whatever. But this is different. So what he wants to do is he wants to observe the animals in their natural environment, because he's been building these natural environments, but he's been building them off things he's seen in photos and drawings and hearing and descriptions from people who have been there. And so he wants to go and he wants to see these creatures in real life so he can more accurately depict them in his dioramas. But on top of that, this is the golden age of Teddy Roosevelt and all of his buddies going to Africa to just shoot. There's no like conservation laws in the savannah right now. People are just going there and they're just blasting away because they want to cut the heads off these things and mount them on their walls. And Akeley is concerned that this like senseless destruction of wildlife is going to depopulate entire populations of animals in the African countryside. And why he's doing this is because he wants his great grandchildren to know what a hippopotamus looked like, because he's worried that there's a chance there are not going to be any hippopotami left by the time that kid grows up.
Right. Yeah. He's basically the first conservationist. He's the first person to, or I'm sure there are other folks throughout history that were recognizing the same thing. I think that what was happening is you're coming off of the Victorian era. The Victorian era was all about collection and they're preserving things, but they're preserving it for its beauty and its attractiveness and not scientifically. So it's things like women's hats made out of bird feathers, and it's pool balls used to be made out of elephant ivory. There's all these. And so not only do you have hunters, but you also have a lot of these animals are being used in fashion and think like, the same way that whales were used for oil and corset corset
boning and stuff, and the same way that like, rhinos are still being hunted by poachers and stuff.
Exactly the same thing. So he goes to Africa and sees basically these animals are disappearing at this point. Around the turn of the century, they're already starting to show that their numbers are limited.
Right, and something needs to be done. And he does do a lot of conservation work, trying to raise awareness throughout the rest of his life. He's going to do a lot of conservation work to try to raise awareness for keeping these animals and preserving them and not hunting them. But in the process of that, we did an episode on Steve Irwin, and I think about Steve Irwin with this, because Steve Irwin was like, why do I put my face right there next to that biting animal? Because you're going to remember that. And then you're going to remember that this biting animal is like kind of interesting, and you're going to want to learn more about him, and maybe it'll make you think about nature. And for him, he's kind of doing that. He's wandering around the African savannah with a nickel-plated, double-barreled elephant gun that shoots a .557 caliber bullet. But he's also doing that because he's trying to if he can bring one of these animals back and put it in a museum in New York City, maybe he can convince you to not buy that hat that's made out of ostrich feathers, because ostriches are a limited resource and they're actually kind of cool looking, and here's what they look like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and you can only imagine, like, people of that era, they get all these things from Africa, but they don't really have any emotional connection to these animals. So building dioramas in New York City where thousands and thousands of people can see them breeds in that compassion for that wildlife that is so strange to folks in America.
Right. Like, people at this time, they might not know what a hippopotamus looks like. And they say, oh, the leather on these boots is great. But,
yeah,
when you see a picture of the thing, or you see a living version of the thing, life size, standing there looking at you in its native environment with its kids or whatever, maybe you're like, but this is kind of an impressive thing. This is kind of special. Maybe we shouldn't be just gunning these things down and skinning them.
Yeah, for sure.
So what also happens here in his quest for conservation, he almost dies many, many, many times.
So many times.
He's really committed. It's like you said, he was working for $1.15 an hour and just getting attacked by wild animals that just don't appreciate what he's trying to do for them.
No, they do not.
So we're going to highlight it. It's like you said, we could never do all of this in an episode, but the story that, we're going to open the show with in the cold open is probably my favorite one. It's the one that the first picture I saw of him with the leopard. And so this one happens pretty early on in his career. He is in Africa. He has gone to a watering hole, and he was able to bag a hyena and a big warthog. He shot both those animals, but he wasn't able to collect both the bodies because he was carrying too much stuff. So he went back. He dropped his stuff off. He came back to pick up the bodies, and they're gone. They've been dragged off, and there's this like blood streak of them being dragged off. And he is kind of like, uh-oh, this is a problem. There's a predator around here. I don't know what's going on. And he's kind of looking at the blood streaks and where they've gone. He hears this like noise and rustling in the direction of the blood streak. He aims his weapon at it. And then out of the corner of his eye, I mean, all I can think of is like, clever girl. It's like there's like a leopard head like peeks out of the bush at him from his side. He can't get his weapon around fast enough. And this leopard just leaps at him and jumps on him.
Latches onto his arm, onto his hand, which is very important.
Yes, it latches onto his hand, and he drops his gun, gets his hand up to prevent it from taking out his jugular, which is what it was aiming for. And Michael, you wanna tell the story?
So
this is how you sold me on him. This is the story you told me.
Carl Akeley, in his head, instead of trying to wrestle this leopard to the ground, he was like, I wonder if I just punch into his throat or push my arm deeper into the throat of the leopard. And so he proceeds to basically choke the leopard and grapple with it. I mean, the leopard's still like clawing at him, and the man is just so tough. He just holds onto the leopard into like what I can only imagine is like what do they call that when crocodiles spin you around?
Spiral. So I think of like an angry house cat. I had this house cat that was just like a devil, and he was big and fuzzy, and you'd pet him and he'd roll over on his back. My parents took his front claws out, so he didn't have front claws. So he'd roll over on his back and you'd pet him on it. You're like, oh, he wants his tummy petted. And you'd pet him and he'd grab you with his front claws and he'd start biting you and kicking you with his back claws. So it was like that, except the leopard was like 80 pounds.
Yeah. So he wrestles this thing down to the ground, and sure enough, he suffocates it, and he lives to see another day somehow. Yes. So that's the epic photo. Like every time you see, like you look up Carl Akeley, you see this picture of him bandaged with the leopard right next to him, and he looks pretty badass. He looks pretty badass.
He's got the beard. He just looks angry. just like an angry science teacher.
He does kind of have science teacher vibes.
Yes. So, yes, Carl Akeley, noted philanthropist and respected wildlife conservationist, punched a leopard in the esophagus from the inside and ripped out its throat. And then he body slammed it to the ground, and then he kills it. I sort of saw one version of the story where he jumps on it with his knees and crushes it, but I think he either way he suffocates it.
I mean, this thing became like, this era of wildlife adventure was like an era that was well documented and well written about, because like kids read these books. They ate this stuff up.
There's a Carl Akeley comic book.
Yeah, I have a copy of the Carl Akeley comic book that
you
shows
bring that
both.
to D&D next week. I want to see it.
Yeah, I was trying to find it. I'll try and find it by next week. But it illustrates both the leopard attack and on the same trip the elephant attack.
Yeah, I've seen that on. I've seen pictures of it. I've seen scans of it, but I haven't seen the actual book. And
I got it off eBay. Yes. It turned out it wasn't that hard to find.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So yeah, he kills the leopard, but he is also like horrifically injured. It's bitten his hand. His hand was literally in the creature's mouth for a long time. He's been clawed by it. He's bleeding profusely from both hands. The hand that he pulls the esophagus out with is completely shattered. Also, he almost died of malaria like a week before this encounter, so he's still recovering from that.
Yeah.
And but he's like, well, I got a leopard. And he picks it up and he puts it on his back and he carries it however many miles back to camp on his shoulder without passing out or like bleeding to death. And then he has it taxidermied, and it's in a museum. You can go see it today in New York City.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's amazing.
Okay, so later we should do the elephant story too, because later he's on the slopes of Mount Kenya, and he's traveling with a group of porters, Kenyan porters, who are kind of helping out the expedition. And they say they've seen the biggest elephant they've ever seen. And so he's like, I definitely got to check this out, because I've seen a lot of elephants, and these guys have seen a lot of elephants. And if this is the biggest one, I got to see what it looks like. So they start tracking it.
This trip, he was specifically asked to find elephants, and he was only allowed to take, I think, one. And his wife was allowed to take one. So he was running out of time and needed to bag an elephant for I think it was for Chicago. I think it was for the Chicago Museum. Anyway,
okay,
go on.
So it starts raining, and then it starts raining harder. It's Africa, and it's like tropical, and this becomes this humongous driving rainstorm, and he's trying to track it through this heavily wooded area. And he's with these two other guys, and they lose the trail of it. And they can't find it. It's raining. It's loud. And, they're kind of lost deep in the woods. And then suddenly, out of nowhere, I don't know how you get snuck up on by the largest elephant you've ever seen in your entire life.
But in the comic book, there's just banana leaves that are like slowly parting, and there's just a massive elephant head behind them.
It comes busting in. It smacks Akeley in the face with its trunk, cutting him from like ear to ear. Like he has this badass scar for the rest of his life from getting slashed with the tusks of a monster elephant. Breaks his nose, knocks him down to the ground, and he can't get his gun around. He pops up to his feet, tries to get the blood out of his eyes, and then he can see a 13-foot tall, 2-ton elephant running straight at him with tusks and everything. And so he decides to jump for the tusks, right? Yes. Between them. This is like some MacGyver stuff. There's an episode of MacGyver where there's an attack helicopter coming after him, and it's got machine guns on each side of the helicopter, and it's shooting like machine guns at him. And MacGyver goes and stands, and the helicopter flies over, and the bullets land on either side of him, but they don't hit him. And then he's like, they ask him, like he's talking to the girl after, and he's like, oh, I knew exactly how far apart the machine guns were. So if I just stood right there, they wouldn't hit me. And that's what he tries to do with the elephant. That's exactly what he tries to do with the elephant tusks. He tries to slip between them. He grabs one tusk and tries to position himself in between the tusks, which is, by the way, next to the creature's mouth. The ivory tusks were like 6 feet in length. And so he's between the tusks in front of the elephant's mouth, and its nose is there. And so what does it do? Maybe you should answer this.
It body slams him.
Yeah, it headbutts him into the ground. It smashes its head into the mud and crushes him with 24,000 pounds of elephant. And
he breaks all of his ribs.
Breaks every one of his ribs. Punctures a lung. He blacks out immediately. And then the elephant just like gets up. He's not moving. He's just flat. I just picture like one hand sticking up out of the mud, like a cartoon. The elephant starts chasing around the Kenyan guys that are with him. And they're just like, they look at Akeley, they look at the elephant, which is chasing them. And they're just like, there's also a thing in like the religion of this particular tribe where it's bad luck to touch a dead body. I think a lot of tribes probably have that. But he's just like, they're just like, I'm out of here. And they take off running.
Yeah.
So they run and they flee back to camp. And like you said, Carl Akeley, at this point in his career, he's married to a woman named Delia Akeley, who is awesome. And we're going to talk about her in a minute. But when they get back, it's been like a couple of hours. And she's like, they get back to camp and she's like, where's my husband? And they're like, I don't know. Last time we saw him, he was flat on his back in 3 inches of mud, being rained on, being chased around by an elephant. And she's like, well, I got to do something about that, right?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I can't remember. I thought Carl crawled back.
He wakes up. He wakes up and he starts to crawl back. She goes to get him. She's like, I got to go get him. I can't leave him there. And so she goes to get him, and it's like you said, he's awake. He wakes up, he's unconscious for 5 hours. Then he wakes up, and when she finds him, he's like crawling back to camp.
Body slammed by an elephant, and this guy won't keep him down. No.
Loves elephants. Thinks it's like this real Steve Irwin vibes, you know? He spends 3 months in the hospital. That's where that picture was taken. And he's 46 years old at this point. And I don't know, man. I don't know about you, but I'm 45. I sleep weird sometimes, and I have trouble walking around. He got squished by an elephant. He's just 3 months. He's fine. Back at it.
Dude was tough.
Yes. And Delia was pretty awesome too, because she, like you said, she was allowed to bag an elephant.
Yeah, so they had an elephant limit. I'm not quite sure why. I don't know how it was imposed, because conservation laws were different back then. But they were only allowed to do one elephant per person. And Carl had gotten one, but it wasn't quite as big as he wanted. And so he basically told his wife that she has to take out the elephant. And she does. She goes and she hunts, and she gets a much bigger elephant than Carl's. Both elephants are still to this day like one of the main centerpieces at the Chicago Museum of Natural History. And there's rumors that when they restored Carl's elephant, they found seams that seemed to indicate that he artificially inflated the size of his elephant.
Awesome. That's great. I'm not even mad about that.
It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Delia Akeley, she was a hunter. She went with him on these safaris. She went on dozens of safaris in her life. She helped him taxidermy a lot of the animals as well. She did a lot of the deer exhibit at that museum.
So without getting too gross about what it takes to taxidermy an elephant, you should know that elephant skin is, I think, about an inch thick.
Oh,
and
God.
In order for them to transport it, they have to remove all of the fat layer from the elephant skin, which they have to do that before the elephant rots. And just the scale of the creature and the hot sun in Africa and scraping those skins down so they'd be small enough to transport and they wouldn't rot. She did all that work alongside Carl, and sounds like a pretty tough job to me.
I thought they smelled bad on the outside. Yeah, I think about that scene in Game of Thrones where Tywin Lannister is like, when we first meet Tywin Lannister and he's like dressing a deer. It's not for the faint-hearted. It's like you need like a Bowie knife for this, right? Like it's not
yeah, totally. And imagine one the size of an elephant.
Yeah.
He's actually Carl Akeley's the first person to ever attempt to taxidermy an elephant, and that story was that P.T. Barnum, his famous elephant Jumbo, was hit by a train, and they were trying to find a taxidermist that would even touch it because, of course, P.T. Barnum was like, well, my favorite elephant's dead. I have to preserve him and show him off to everyone still. So
right, I need to continue to profit off this animal.
Somehow they found Carl, and he took the train out. The elephant had been dead for days, if not a week or so. And he did manage to preserve that elephant and figure out a way to keep that skin, and it was taxidermized, and it was toted around to all of P.T. Barnum's circuses, and it was in a museum for a while, but I believe that museum burnt down. But that's the first recorded taxidermied elephant. Was done by Carl.
Oh, wow! Because not only it was like, well, it's not in what condition is it in? Not great. It got hit by a train. Also, nobody's ever done this before. Also, you're going to be operating on this thing like after it's been dead for a week.
A week late, yeah. And then you have to figure out how to not only just skin the animal, but also how to arrange the animal, how to build a structure within it, and how to support that much weight. Like, he invented so much. It's hard to even fathom how much. I
didn't even consider that. The weight of the skin must be very heavy. So you can't just build it's like they talk about when they talk about Michelangelo's David, where one of the most impressive things about that people don't really realize was the ankles. You might have actually been the person that told me this, like
I probably told you this
years ago. But like
the ankles are so thin.
Right. And how does it support the weight of all that marble on top of it? So I didn't even think about that with the weight of an elephant's skin. And maybe this is kind of grotesque or whatever, but this is this guy's life.
Yeah,
and so we should talk about it.
This might be getting into the weeds a little bit, but so humans, animals, creatures with muscle are tensile structures. So we can lift our arms and our shoulders and stuff, or our torsos, because of the tension in our muscles. When you build a structure, a mannequin underneath this, you are building something that is a compression structure. So something made out of wood, made out of plaster and stuff like that. It doesn't hang the same way. It doesn't operate the same way. So you kind of have to solve for these structural problems. I mean, that's solved with like metals and things like that, but it's pretty challenging when you get into something as large as an elephant. And there are really cool pictures of Carl up on scaffolding, with these mannequin structures, assembling them, and they're pretty epic to see how he put them together.
Wow. Yeah, it's all this stuff you don't think of, and you have to build the model exactly to scale. Otherwise, the skin is too small or it's too big.
The skin doesn't fit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Huge part of his job when he would take an animal is that he would measure it like extensively, like how wide are its shoulders, how the diameter of their neck, their arms. He would measure individual muscles and stuff before he would start the taxidermy process.
Dang. Okay. So that's kind of the general thing here. There's a couple more weird Akeley stories I want to tell. And I'm kind of just getting started. So let's take another break. And when we come back, we'll talk about the time that Carl Akeley crossed a crocodile-infested river by using a dead animal as a raft and other assorted weird stories. So stick with us if that sounds interesting to you. Okay, welcome back. We are here with woodworker and internet personality Michael Alm, and we are talking about Carl Akeley.
Happy to be here.
Yes, and we're going to talk about this time in Uganda when he was trying to cross a river. So Carl Akeley was out there looking for crocodiles, and he sees this humongous crocodile on the far side of this river, and he shoots it and kills it. And he's with a porter who's from a Ugandan guy, and they're going to swim across this river to get the crocodile. They start to swim across this river, and suddenly, oh yeah, right, the crocodile's here because it's a crocodile-infested river, and the porter is grabbed from below by a crocodile, which pulls him under the water and does the death spiral thing. The porter is never seen or heard from again. Carl Akeley is now in crocodile-infested river. He keeps swimming. He gets to the other side. He finds the dead crocodile that he's shot. But now he's got to get back to the other side. And there's no obvious place to ford the river here. And we know it's full of animals. So, Michael, what do you think he does?
I mean, I feel like in D&D we would do the exact same thing.
Yeah,
right?
That's right. That's right. You throw the croc in the river, it floats. You ride it like a raft. You paddle with your gun butt. Mm-hmm. Anytime anything pops its head up above the water, you whack it and you keep paddling.
Have you ever seen those like Nat Geo footage of the zebras trying to cross similar waters with crocodiles? It's terrifying.
It's like awful.
The bravery of this dude is insane.
And it's not like he doesn't know better, right? He's seen this. He's basically a nature photographer at this point. He knows what they're capable of. He just saw them eat a guy. They just ate a dude in front of him. Literally, yeah. He's Tarzan.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's another story that I like about him because he's in the Congo at one point, and it's worth mentioning that we've kind of been nebulously saying he was in sub-Saharan Africa, but Kenya and Congo and Uganda are not close to each other. He's all over the place. They're not like some of those countries don't share a border. Like he's traveling around to all different parts of Africa. He's covering the entire continent to try to find creatures from all over the place. And there's a story that he's in the Congo and he gets surprised by elephants again. He gets sneak attacked by an elephant for the second. But this isn't even just one giant elephant. It's like a huge herd of elephants. He's like in the Congo, he's in the forest, and there's just a million elephants come stampeding through the forest all around him. And he was like, I couldn't tell even what direction they were coming from. There's elephants everywhere. I can't tell what direction they're coming from because the noise of all the trees being knocked down by their weight is so loud that it's deafening, and I can't place what direction they're coming from. It's just sound everywhere from all these animals stampeding. And he starts running around and he's trying to like weave his way through these stampeding elephants without getting stepped on and crushed again by a giant elephant. And the only reason I bring this story up, Michael, is because it reminds me of that scene from Peter Jackson's King Kong that you love.
I knew you were going to do this to me.
Yes, I was definitely going to do this for you. Michael showed up to a D&D one time and he had just seen Peter Jackson's King Kong. And there's a scene in that movie in which the main characters are running away from giant dinosaurs. And I'm not going to make you do it. I'm not going to attempt to have you reproduce the rant that you...
I'll never be that mad ever again. I mean, the crux of it is that if anyone's ever seen that, they didn't choreograph beforehand, and they put the animals on top of the actors, like pretending to run away from something, but they never told them where they're going to be and when. So you could see them just shoehorning like legs in at different parts, and nothing makes sense at all. It's it's a pretty and then the other thing about it, I don't know if it's true that it's like a 10-minute scene, but in my head it became a 10-minute scene of this stampede that just would not end, and I'm like, you guys got to edit this out because it looks awful. Like, how did this go through? Anyway, anyone who's seen the movie will know the scene that I'm talking about. It took me 3 nights to watch that movie because it's so long, and then I'm starting to get angry, Ben. I'm starting to get angry.
Good, that's what I was going for. That's why I brought this up. We need to harness that for the rest of the episode.
All right, back to Carl Akeley.
Let's get back on track here. He does claim to have been charged over 20 times by various breeds of rhinos. And I remember reading a thing of like from Teddy Roosevelt was like, I'm not as scared of rhinos as I am of elephants. And I think Akeley was similar because he was like, there was one time when he was like, he tells a story about how he was charged from 3 different rhinos from 3 different directions at the same time. And he was just like, yeah, you know, their eyesight's bad. So it's all about the charging and it's not about actually killing anything. So I just didn't move and I was fine. So
good to know. Just in case don't worry about those rhinos. Those hippos though. Those things will kill you.
Hippos are mean. They're like big giant pigs. They'll eat anything. Mm-hmm. They're not like they're like, oh, they're herbivores. No, they eat everything, man. Don't mess with hippos. They're angry, super territorial, and they swim really fast.
I think they have one of like the strongest bite strengths of mammals. Like, yeah. I mean, those jaws are huge.
They do that thing at Woodland Park Zoo. They do like the pumpkin bash or whatever. So there's a zoo in Seattle, and every year on Halloween, they throw pumpkins to the different animals. And like, they give it to the red panda and he's cute and he like jumps around on it. They throw it to the hippo just mashes it with one bite, eats the whole thing. Just crushes it. It's awesome. Okay, so these are things that Carl Akeley is learning when he is traveling through Africa. He goes through Somalia, East Africa, the Congo. He's traveling between 1896 and 1926, so 30 years. He's working all day long. He's sleeping 4 to 5 hours a night, works day and night. He's working in kind of bad conditions, right? He's working in a field camp in the savannah, right? He's not always in his lab or his workshop. He's trying to preserve animal and plant specimens that have never been seen in the United States. And he has this sense of responsibility that like, I have to bring these things back. And half the time when he's there, he's getting malaria and dysentery and yellow fever and all these diseases that, you know, we might have cures for now or vaccines for now, but they didn't in 1926. So he's spending a lot of time laid out with various diseases and stuff. He's working through that, right? He's got dysentery, but it doesn't matter. He's going to keep working. He tries to aid his work. He invents a kind of portable video camera to kind of record these animals in the wild so that he can have documented footage of them so that he can make his dioramas more lifelike. That video camera ends up becoming something that was used by Hollywood studios to film battlefront footage in World War I. He uses it to film gorillas in the wild. He uses it to record an African lion in Uganda. And then when he's not like recording and taxidermying, he writes articles for National Geographic. He hangs out with Teddy Roosevelt, who I've been kind of dunking on this episode, but Teddy Roosevelt was also a conservationist. And and they Akeley is kind of a big deal in helping Roosevelt kind of get into becoming a conservationist, which leads to the creation of the American National Park System, which is important. Yeah.
No, he's good friends with Teddy Roosevelt, and he brought him onto his side as a naturalist. It's pretty cool.
Totally. He has a pet monkey named JT Jr. You have some pet monkey. You said you had some pet monkey stories, and I did no more research on it beyond that. Oh my god! Because I was hoping you had some pet monkey stories.
So his wife got the pet monkey and named the monkey after Carl, and then decided to bring the monkey back to New York, and where they lived, and in their, I assume, very small apartment in New York City, they had a wild monkey, and this monkey destroyed the house, and but she refused to like address that it was a problem and basically treated it as their child. So I'm not sure what was going on.
It's a beloved pet.
Very beloved pet. I don't want to disparage her contribution to all of this because she brought so much to a lot of, when you were talking about the flowers and the
elephant
the
and
plant
the
life
deer exhibit.
Yeah, the deer exhibit, like they did this 4 seasons of white-tailed deer in Chicago, which is absolutely extraordinary. And she preserved all of the plants for that exhibit. She was amazing, but she kind of, maybe from some of these African diseases that they were getting, she lost her mind. And she was obsessed with this monkey. And the thing that ended their marriage was that Carl donated the monkey to a zoo.
Uh-oh.
It was game over after that.
Yeah, that's a relatable relationship issue. I feel like I know people that have come to like have pets that create marital discord.
Yeah, but imagine a wild monkey that's untrained, that's pooping on your floor, tearing everything apart, and you can't bring guests over. You basically can't interact with other people. It bit Carl numerous times.
Oh God.
So yeah.
That's how you get COVID.
That's absolutely how you get COVID.
So they divorced in 1924. He remarries Mary Job Akeley, who was 20 years younger than him and was such a badass mountain climber that Mount Job in the Canadian Rockies is named after her. And she also got into taxidermy towards the later part of his career. When he's with Mary Jo Akeley, he's in the Congo working with gorillas. They take photographs of various wild animals, and they hang out with gorillas. They actually discover a new type of gorilla. They're 10,000 feet above the Congo, and they find a type of mountain gorilla that had never been observed in the wilderness before.
For reference, at this time period, gorillas were almost like seeing a Yeti or seeing a Bigfoot. Like they were that mysterious, and not like, a lot of people didn't actually believe that they existed. So
weird.
That's the interesting thing about this era with these naturalists when they're going out and exploring. They are literally finding things that haven't been seen in the West, like at all, and they're bringing back like full specimens of this. And Carl, the later part of his life, became pretty obsessed with gorillas to the point where he did collect a few gorillas, but he felt it said that it took everything in his being to shoot a gorilla and bring it back, but he knew that there was a good chance that they wouldn't survive this century, and if he didn't collect one, there wouldn't be a historic record of them.
Because like you said, there was people, if they saw it, like, they're so rare, and it was like seeing a Bigfoot. And interesting. Yeah. I didn't realize they were that rare. So this is kind of this is also actually like the time period in which the King Kong movie is set. Peter Jackson's King Kong, set in 1933. Mm-hmm. So this is like 1928. So
I'm getting mad again.
I'm just throwing that out there. Let's see. He also develops a gas-powered cannon that sprays concrete, like a blowtorch that shoots concrete. He calls it shotcrete. He uses it to
shotcrete.
Yeah, shotcrete. Yeah, he uses it to create plaster molds for his taxidermy. But
it's still used today. But it's he used it because he had such giant animals. He needed a way to fire concrete at them so that he could build them quick enough.
So he built a concrete blowtorch, and then he showed it to Teddy Roosevelt, and Teddy Roosevelt was like, "This is awesome." And then Teddy Roosevelt used it to build the Panama Canal.
Thank you, Carl Akeley, for that canal.
Yeah, for the Panama Canal. Yeah. It's like you said, he does taxidermy some gorillas, but he does feel bad about it, and he is able to he helps convince Teddy Roosevelt to set up the national park system. He helps convince the King of Belgium to set up like a huge wildlife preserve to keep gorillas safe in the Congo, because Congo was a Belgian colony at the time. He also, does some work to preserve the California redwoods, and he spends the later part of his life being a really powerful voice in the wildlife conservation movement. He's responsible for setting up some of the most important and longest lasting wildlife preserves on the planet, both not only in the United States, but also in Africa. So
the gorilla preserve, I'm pretty sure Jane Goodall spent a good bit of time in that gorilla preserve. So it still exists today.
Right. Yeah, Jane Goodall does that. All the gorillas in the mist, all that is in Carl Akeley's preserve that he was able to help convince the King of Belgium to set up, with presumably a very impassioned speech and a good charisma roll. I guess I'm going to tie D&D into this again. Okay, so in 1926, he's on expedition in the Congo to observe gorillas. Like you said, he becomes obsessed with them, which is weird because he hated that monkey, but he likes gorillas.
Yeah, interesting.
I guess gorillas are not monkeys, they're apes.
They're a gentler creature.
Did you tell me that I think I learned the difference between a monkey and a gorilla from you.
Monkey and an ape?
Yeah, sorry, the monkey and an ape. The difference between a monkey and an ape is that a monkey has a tail. I think I learned that.
That sounds like a Zach fact.
Oh, that's a Zach fact. Yeah, that's a Zach animal fact.
Shout out to Zach.
Shout out to our friend Zach, who literally just texted me while we were doing this episode to tell me he can't make it to D&D tonight. Okay, so anyway, in 1926, he's on expedition in the Congo to observe gorillas. He catches a fever and dies of tropical disease at the age of 62. He is buried at the spot where he fell, which is near the top of a mountain between two peaks measuring 11,000 feet in elevation. Even now, 100 years after his death, his life's work is still immaculately preserved in the Akeley Hall of African Mammals at the American Museum of Natural History in Manhattan's Upper West Side. And Michael, you said you've been there.
I've been there several times, and it's spectacular. It's just as spectacular. They restored it recently, like within the last 10 years, and it's still stunning. The way that they create forced perspective, and the way that like care is taken to preserve each and every plant. There's so much to see. This was before wildlife documentaries, before David Attenborough. This is how people got to know other wildernesses, other wild lands, and other creatures from far away. So it's way better than a zoo. It's way more informative than a zoo. And if you haven't
the zoos
seen
in 1933,
yeah, like concrete pits. No, it is really, as an artist, it's incredible. The matte paintings behind were all done on location. So they would do miniature paintings of the site on location with Carl Akeley, and he was the one that just pushed it. He was like, we need to have real locations that we bring back exactly as is. And he brought out painters to paint the backgrounds in miniature in Africa, brought those paintings back, and then they replicated them in New York. Wow.
And that's such a good point that you made of there are not color photographs in this time period, and there's not TV, there's radio, but radio is not going to convey what you're looking for here. And you can paint a picture of these animals and you can draw them as lifelike as you'd like, but it's not the same as standing in that room. And, for people listening, I definitely recommend I've never been to this museum, but there's photographs of all of this stuff online, and you look at it and you can just imagine. And there's an amazing taxidermy section in the museum in Denver. I was there once, and that area, that was just great. And, you just can't, for these people, the only way to experience this was to stand in this room next to these animals. And for Carl Akeley, he wanted you to feel like you were there in Africa. You can You can dip into Manhattan's Upper West Side, and you can be transported to Africa and see the things as they exist there. That was the only way to do it. Michael, is there anything else that we need to say about Carl Akeley? What's the takeaway from him? What's the lesson that we learned from the story of Carl Akeley?
I think what I find most impressive about him is just his devotion to perfection, and his it's because of him that so much of this stuff was preserved, and so much and there's good hard science from that era. Like, they can still take DNA samples. They know the exact location of these animals. A lot has been learned from one man, and the amount of influence that he's had on, like you said, everything from the Akeley camera to shotcrete. Like, he has influenced the fabric of American society, and basically created conservationism as we know it. Not single-handedly, but he sure did a lot in his life.
Absolutely. I love that. I didn't even think about that, but you could pluck it because it's a real animal hide. You could pluck a hair off it and get DNA from it.
Mm-hmm.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
100 years after his death, because of the work he did in really bad conditions and minimal, like early stuff, right? He's not camping in Gore-Tex, and he's out there with leather and cloth, right?
Yeah.
Just amazing stuff.
No, he was tough. If there's anything about Carl Akeley to know, it's that he was really, really tough. I don't know. I've always been so curious. I'm like, I would love to sit down with him and have a conversation, but like, would he be a nice guy? Would he be gruff? Like, I never really get this. He seems very serious from what I read, but
you might be disappointed if he wasn't. If he was just like, hey guy, hey man, what's up? This is great. I'm having a really good time. Thanks so much. These hors d'oeuvres are amazing. You'd be like, oh, this isn't quite what I was expecting. Yeah, he survived getting headbutted by an elephant, and he punched a leopard's guts out from the inside.
Mm-hmm.
He killed a leopard while it was eating him. It's like pretty badass. That's what the show's all about.
Yeah.
Michael, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been really fun talking to you. I really appreciate you being here and coming on to help us tell this story.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I love talking about Carl Akeley more than most things. So I very rarely get a chance to. Yes.
The only thing you enjoy talking about more is Peter Jackson's King Kong, which I also had to make sure you had an opportunity to talk about on the show. Where can people find more of your stuff?
You could find me on YouTube. You can search Almfab, ALMFAB. That's where most things about me are on the internet. I also have almfab.com is a good place. I sell woodworking plans on there, and yeah, I teach people how to do cool woodworking projects. Like taxidermy animals. I don't actually have a good video on that. But
it's a running joke between at our D&D group that everybody tries to pitch Michael ideas for his next video. Or at least I do it. I feel like I constantly am being like, you should make a video about that. Just whatever stupid thing comes up.
I love it. I know.
Yeah, it never gets old. You're never tired of making that joke. Old. Okay.
Oh, well, if Michael, you do want to see my art, if you want to see my artwork, yes. MichaelAlm.com is where you want to see if you want to see my sculptures.
Right, and you have this amazing jackrabbit one that I love, where it's kind of like this. You made this jackrabbit out of wood that's kind of goes down into the muscular system of it. It's awesome, and a lot of the stuff that I've been talking about, the vegan taxidermy, is on there as well. You did Carl Akeley's work without actually having to machine gun any animals.
Exactly. Vegan taxidermy, as you put it in the beginning.
Right. Okay. Thank you again so much for being on the show. And thank you all for listening to this episode. We love having you here. We love telling these stories about badasses. You can help us out by giving us some likes and subscribes and all that stuff that you're supposed to do. It actually really does help the show out, even though I hate having to ask for it. So we are going to be back next week with another episode. Michael, thank you again for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and thanks you guys for listening. Stay badass.
Badass of the Week is produced by High Five Content. Executive producers are me, Ben Thompson, Dr. Patricia Larish, and Andrew Jacobs. Writing is by me and Pat. Story editing by Ian Jacobs. Mixing and music and sound design by Jude Brewer. Special thanks to Noel Brown at iHeartRadio. Badass of the Week is based on my website, badassoftheweek.com, where you can read all sorts of stories about other badasses. If you want to reach out with questions or ideas, you can email us at badasspodcast@badassoftheweek.com. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, listen, and tell your friends and tell your enemies. And please leave us a rating. We'll be back next week with another one.